بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the Master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. And Ibn Daghina, he goes all the way to Mecca with Abu Bakr. And that night he speaks to the chieftains of the tribes. And he says that this man is a good man. And these are all the things that he does that are good. He will be under my protection going forward. None of you will do anything to him. And the Quraysh, they say to Ibn Daghina that is fine with us. He can stay here and worship as he chooses. But we would want for him to limit it to the confines of his home. And they agreed to this. I want you to think about this in the frame of thoughts that likely have permeated your conscious, whether you are aware of them or not. That a week removed from an act of white supremacist terrorism that took the lives of 50 of our sisters and brothers, may Allah raise them from amongst the shuhada and grant them the best of reunions with their loved ones in the world beyond this one. That injured 42 people, may Allah grant them a complete healing. And an entire community that feels trauma, pain in the aftermath of it, may that healing be a healing that is of the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual of anyone who finds themselves in a place of pain. That we have seen signs of beauty and convening and people coming together to offer support and to give comfort and to provide a shoulder to shed a tear on. But for us as a community who recognizes that we play a role in the determination of a destiny that is not limited to a dunya that is filled with false realities, but a world that has an ultimate destination in the existence of the world beyond this one. We want to understand what it means for people to actually support us well. Can we have everyone please move up? If we can please move in close. There's a lot of people who are still going to be coming in and there's a lot of gaps, so please move as close as possible and move to the right side of the room as well as you can to make room for people who are joining. That you and I, we have quite often been in a sphere where we take just whatever it is that people give to us and we give gratitude at times for things that we were entitled to in the first place. And I say it with an understanding that, in my opinion, the people who run the country of New Zealand are remarkable individuals. Without hesitation, putting into legislation anti-gun laws, being in a place where their allyship is reflective of what the needs of the community are and taking cues from the people, not just dictating in their own sense of savioriness, that we will use our voice to say how it is you should be. Partaking and participating within Islamic ritual and tradition based off of the actual doctrine itself. And not saying that we need something that's going to make us comfortable to be in your space, but recognizing that real allyship is about letting yourself get uncomfortable
and to leverage what you have access to for the service of those who are underserved and underprivileged. What Ibn Daghina does is that he takes his clout and he utilizes it because it's the right thing to do. He questions the people that he is a part of, not just questioning those who are doing from the outside, but from within. And when you and I now find ourselves in places where we have the blessing of people looking to us and saying, how can we help you? Where we will ramp up in preparation for cycles of elections and politics where people will come and they will want to stand. We have to have a baseline understanding of what it means for somebody to actually be a good ally to us. And that means, first and foremost, that the way Ibn Daghina does not put conditions on where he will leverage his power for the sake of someone underserved and underprivileged. That if somebody really wants to stand with you and I, they're going to stand with you and I regardless of the situation. They will be in a sphere where their recognition of their power and privilege will be such that they will call out inequity in all of its forms. And I say it to you because we know that in the coming months in Ramadan, there will be politicians that will come and sit in our spaces. There will be people who will say that we are brothers and sisters that come from different faith backgrounds, but our embrace of diversity will have us engage in dialogue. There will be people who will say that let us come and figure out ways to stand together. But you know as well as I do that they will put conditions on the kind of people they will let stand with them. They didn't do that in New Zealand. They stood as who they were. When Abu Bakr has Ibn Daghina advocate on his behalf, Abu Bakr does not change where it is that he's coming from on his beliefs and his convictions to fit into somebody else's box under the guise of performative allyship. As it moves forward, he says to himself that he will pray in his home. And it's hard for this man to not read Quran or engage in text without tears coming from his eyes. That even towards the end of his life, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells his daughter, Muru Abu Bakr fayusalli bin nas, that go and find Abu Bakr and tell him to lead the people in prayer. And she says, Inna kana abi rajulan asif, that indeed my father, he's a tender man, meaning he cries a lot. People knew that he would do that. And so he says within the confines of the courtyard of his home, that's where I will build a place for me to pray. And when he starts to pray out loud, the women and children of the tribes of Mecca, they become intrigued and they come to see what it is that he is doing. Because he's not about hiding himself. And all he's trying to do is pray to his God the way he knows how to pray, deep and affirmed in his conviction. And the Qurayshi people, they go back to Ibn Daghina and they say that, look at what he's doing. He's drawing the attention away and people are starting to become interested in what he's about. Ibn Daghina, he says that you need to be in a place where the people don't hear you. That's the terms that they have set forth. And Abu Bakr says that, then take back your protection of safety. I don't need it. Allah will be my protector. That the compromise is not worth it. That the validation that comes from those who only seek to validate when you are willing to let go of a salient part of your identity. That sincerity is not there in the truest form of what it means to stand with somebody in their struggle. If the standing only comes when you have to sacrifice a part of yourself for them to come and support you. I want us to dig deep and recognize that the development of clout and the existence of power, when we talk about it on institutional levels, systemically and structurally, are not things that have been beyond impact on Muslims since the country's inception. And in moments where we're reflective, where we can try to truly understand that there are elements that allow for us to bear impact on people of good conscience. That the achievement in and of itself is not that the adhan was played for a global audience to hear, which, subhanAllah, at the end of it, Allah will get His word to people in whatever ways that He can, Azza wa Jal. But the recognition is not about sensationalizing, but to think about how it is that people who live in a society that still has its challenges with supremacy, a man from that place went in on the determination of supremacist ideology to go and kill people that he believed he was better than. That the society responded differently and said that there was no place in that. And I want you to just think about the people of New Zealand who first started to share their voices in support for our sisters and brothers. The people who are indigenous populations of those lands that would perform their haka dances in commemoration of mourning for the deceased. And you think about who it is that we flock to in order for us to gain an iota of some type of validation, but in reality we are letting go of right upon right upon right, because the people who we believe they stand with us will mean something of impact are actually the ones that are taking the rights away in the first place. Where we have hesitancy in transcending and moving beyond elements of race and class. We believe that our sense of worth is attached to those who have wealth and affluence, giving us a sense of dignity. That's not what this deen is about. This religion, which causes a lot of frustration to people, says that the poor and the pauper has as much worth in the sight of God, if not more, than the one that has a lot of wealth in their pockets. It says that God does not look at our forms, our bodies, but He looks at hearts and deeds. And so you want to be real with yourself, because strategically we have to build relationships and partnerships with people who get what it means to go through the struggles that our communities go through. Not just people who will stand with you for a moment, but they are willing, the way Ibn Adagina was willing to do, to speak against his own people in terms of their inequity and oppression. So you got to think what fuels the Islamophobia machine, and where does the money come from? That you look deep in terms of political alliances, interfaith alliances, cross-cultural alliances, and really think hard about how something might just be a band-aid, and in reality it's not even a good band-aid because it's deepening the wound and making it bigger than it was before. But you exercise on principle and strategy, a recognition of what it is that's not worth giving up ever, and you allow for real facilitation to come in to your respective messages that you will go to after you leave the workday throughout the boroughs, and you sit with leadership and you say that we have to be smarter about who it is that we let them believe that they are our allies. And then we increase in clout, because a real ally is willing to save and serve, rather, through the sharing of their power and their privilege. They're not going to rub it in your face. It's not just about photo opportunities. It's not a means to let themselves feel good in the aftermath of tragedy, because Islamophobic and anti-Muslim policy has existed for a long time. And we deserve better than that. We don't have to fit into somebody else's standard of what goodness is. But we recognize that in our deen there is beauty. In the teachings of our Prophet there is beauty. In the embodiment of his sunnah there is beauty. In the living of the ethics and morals that come from our book there is beauty. And where we might struggle and it's difficult for us, that's okay, man. Our God is merciful. But there's a distinction in saying that I will not practice the practice that I want to practice because of what somebody else might think of me. and how they strip it away because they'll only let us stand with them if we fit into a certain set of standards, versus that in my own spiritual trajectory, some things are a little bit hard and it might take me a little bit of time to get to that place. In our tradition, when somebody is called a shaheed, there's a lot that goes into that terminology. And like many aspects of our deen that have been usurped for the advancement of perspectives of us as a community that are nothing of what we are about, so too the concept of the shuhada has been taken from us. But today you see people without hesitation standing on the mimbar in New Zealand with a global audience of hundreds of millions saying that the sisters and brothers who died in this act of white supremacist terrorism, they are from the shuhada, that they are martyrs. Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, he classifies 30 different categories of what it means to be a shaheed. People who drown, the mother who loses her life in pregnancy, someone who dies as a building collapses upon them, someone who dies from certain stomach ailments. It goes on and on and on. What I'm going to tell you, if we nuance it, is that there are people who are not just recognized because of what they pass away on, but their ability to pass away on what it was that their lives were taken is based off of what it was that they were willing to live for. That they have values, they have ideals, they have convictions, that they adhere to a philosophy of life that guides a moral compass in terms of decision making. And it's not dunya, it's not money, it's not food, it's not sex, it's not the feeding of the physical that is making decisions and determinations as to why they do what they do in the first place. Where and how we move forward has to be in complete consciousness as well, that what the shaheed bears witness to, embedded within the term itself, is there something that's much bigger in store for us than what it is that we have in front of us. That the dimensionality of our tradition places on an axis Islam and places on an axis Iman, and then depth is added as a third dimension through ihsan, that it allows for us to find that much more meaning. But the fourth dimension that brings it all together is the dimension of time. And we have consciousness and awareness that there's a limited amount of breaths that we breathe into this world that have been allocated to us. And so we just start thinking that with each breath, what is it that we are interjecting into the world? And what of our values? Mercy, love, excellence, compassion, generosity, truth, integrity, character, and so many more could be found in those breaths. Some of us are in a place where the impact wasn't as hard, and some of us are in a place where it's still difficult. May Allah make things easy for all of us. When I sat yesterday and I watched people praying Jummah hours before we prayed because they're on the other side of the world, and then I woke up this morning and I listened to the khutbah of the Imam, and I tried to think to myself, why is this so moving to me? And there were definitely residual elements of beauty that were from the diverse crowds and people coming together and the way that leadership intervened and all of these things. But what hit me hard this morning about what was really pulling at my heart, man, was just the sheer resilience of these people. That a week ago they went through the trauma they went through, and And 7 days later, they showed up back in that same space, saying not just to the world in its entirety, but every bigot, every racist, every white supremacist, that this is our space and the likes of you will never take it from us. Try to embody in your daily struggles a resilience that's rooted in the idea that there's something much bigger in store. Revisit in your own muhasabah, your practice, and try to recognize within it where it is that you might be letting go a little too much of what you're really about in order to appease people who don't really care too much about you in the first place. And where you can cut out the distractions that is performative allyship, really think about who the people are that you and I have to build deep relationships with so that we increase in numbers, we amplify voices, and we're able to go out and do as much good as possible because that's just what we're supposed to do. If you find yourself in a place where you are still digesting and dealing with things, please let us know. We would be helpful in making referrals to those that you could talk to on a deeper and more professional level. And when you sit in this space, just try to understand what it means to be a sister or brother who embodies such a consciousness that you function as an entire body, and if one part is hurting, the entire body feels ill, as the hadith says of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So use this weekend to check in on people. Open up your home to those who might not have other places to go. People whose family and friends they just don't understand. Because in New Zealand, it's beautiful that workspaces are building musallas for Muslims there. And employers are sitting down with their staff and just asking them how it is that they're doing. But I know there's a lot of you who are in this room that in this past week, nobody has checked in on you at all. That you walked into buildings and everybody just went about everything else. And I'm sorry that's the case. But I'm going to speak to the people who are sitting around you right now and hope that they think with a resilient heart about what is important to them and how they'll take a step towards you. And just ask at the conclusion of this prayer, are you doing okay, my sister? Are you doing okay, my brother? That they won't run out the door to whatever part of the dunya is calling them. But they'll be present enough and then build it up into a Saturday, into a Sunday, into a gathering that says that I just want you to be here to let you know that you don't have to go through any of this on your own. Where we find hesitation is just about getting it done once or twice, because the normalization of mercy and love and compassion is not a bad thing to pursue. And if we're not checking in on each other, man, who's going to really check in on us? Be reflective, be mindful, and help us to build the strategy. Before I sit for the second part of the khutbah, our community in the coming months and going into the next year is going to be thinking about how we can do this strategically. And so we will reach out specifically, but also generally, to be able to understand and inventory all of the talent and resources we have in the room. So that's not just in moments of crisis that we run here and there, but when we reach out and we ask you what it is that you have to offer and what it is that you are about, what it is that you can enable us to do better professionally, strategically, with a plan and a mindfulness, please respond. Give some of your hours, give some of your time, give some of your wealth to ensure that we can keep moving forward. The last thing that I'll say here is that where people in New Zealand have been put in a place where the world is watching them, just understand that they're going to still have a lot of trauma to work through for the coming months. They're going to have to digest and deal with a lot of things, and that kind of therapy and support, it's expensive. So if you're already given, think about giving again. And when it comes down, just do whatever it is that you're able to do. Because helping somebody to heal, even if no other reason, is going to be a source and catalyst of a maqam on the day of judgment in front of Allah that you don't want to bypass as a station that you can stand on. But it starts from here, and it recognizes where all the distractions get pushed out and how we start to build for ourselves, but we can't expect anybody else to build for us. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.